Do you have like as close to a universal subset, because it'll never be the totality, but a universal subset of values that if people adhere to these, it's going to move their life forward? I get it, most people won't be able to adhere to it, but is there like a small handful of things you're like, everybody should have these?
I'm not going to squirm out of this because I've thought about this.
Okay.
I've thought about this. It is hard to say, obviously it's hard to say anything universally, but if I had to say, to me, there's probably 3 universal principles that I think are just effective for the entire human species. It's like just how we're wired. First one is radical responsibility, is like taking ownership of everything that happens in your life. Even if it's not your fault, even if it's tragic, even if it's completely unfair and unjust, you still have to take responsibility for your response to it. And you have to take responsibility for how you're going to deal with that challenge or setback. Responsibility is so important because it empowers you psychologically. Like, as long as you're blaming something around you, and you might even be completely correct that it is their fault, but as long as you're like existing in that mind space, you are disempowering yourself from actually doing anything to improve your situation. So
guaranteed.
It's that's kind of, in my opinion, I call it the prime belief, but it's like nothing else really works until people kind of like flip that switch of like, okay, I need to take responsibility for this, even though I've been screwed over.
What do you say to people that push back, that say, I was screwed over? Like, how can you even say this?
It's fault and responsibility. So this is a very popular part of the subtle art book, but fault and responsibility are 2 different things. We tend to associate them because it's, you know, if you hit me with your car, you're at fault, and so now you owe me something. That's how our legal system works. That's how our social systems kind of work. But so I think our natural instinct is to think, you know, well, I had a screwed up childhood because this person traumatized me, so somebody's got to come fix it for me, right? Like somebody else messed up my life, so somebody else needs to come fix it. And that's like, again, you may be factually correct, but nobody's showing up to fix your life for you. At a certain point, like, you have to decide, it doesn't matter what's happened. I'm the only person who owns my own future. Many people might own my past, but only I own my future. So I need to explicitly take responsibility for making sure it's a good future. Second principle is radical acceptance. So everybody's, our natural inclination is to seek pleasurable experiences and emotions and avoid unpleasurable experiences and emotions. And I think the most psychologically healthy thing to do is to simply accept all emotional experiences, regardless of whether they feel good or feel bad.
By accept, do you just mean don't fight back?
Don't resist, don't avoid, don't deny, don't suppress. And there are some people that suppress positive emotions as well, which is, you know, that's a whole tangent, but it does happen. But basically, you know, the pithy elevator pitch for this is that there's no such thing as a good or bad emotion. There's only good and bad responses to emotions. So you can respond to joy in a very unhealthy way. In fact, a lot of people respond to joy in a very unhealthy way.
Really? Give me an example.
I mean, you go get shit-faced with a bunch of your friends and,
fair.
You know, wake up in a ditch somewhere.
That's interesting.
You know, a lot of people develop, when they feel good, they develop a very strong sense of entitlement. They feel they are owed certain things because they're so happy or they feel so good. So that would be an unhealthy response to positive emotions. But yeah, it's a lot of people, if there's kind of like a template for the average email that I get in my inbox, it's basically this. It's a person says, you know, X, Y, and Z are happening in my life right now. I feel really bad. How do I stop feeling bad? And my response is always the same, is you don't stop feeling bad. You feel bad, and you find a way to respond well despite feeling bad. Like if you try to stop feeling bad, not only are you going to distract yourself and get sucked down a bunch of rabbit holes, but you're actually probably going to make yourself feel worse, right? It's like when you wish you didn't feel guilty, you just feel more guilty. When you get angry at yourself for being angry, you just get even more angry. Like it's this spiral that starts happening. So radical responsibility, radical acceptance, and shit, I'm blanking on the third. I had a video about this.
I've been there so many times. In interviews, I have a rule: never say the number. Like, give me 3 whatever, because then people are like,
oh shit.
It's always nightmarish. Those are 2. I think those are really huge. So responsibility, acceptance. I'll throw a third one into the mix. It's what I call the only belief that matters. It's a bit tough to wrangle this as a value, but I would say progress becomes the value, and then this is the mechanism. Is progress literally it? That's hilarious.
Yes, so it was, I think I called it like radical growth, which is basically...
That's amazing.
Your motivation for everything you do should be to improve the lives of yourself and others.
Facts.